The Messiah. No offense, Perdre, but that has got to be the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Why not me?
Have you met yourself? Perdre, you drink, you fight, you like to break people's arms just to hear the sounds they make.
Howdy, pilgrims, and thanks for tuning in again to Season 4 of Preacher vs. Preacher. It's a comparison companion where each week we get together, we recap AMC's series Preacher, we try to directly compare it to the 90s comic it's based on by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. I'm Bill Sweeney, and for this season I've been bringing in a different guest to help me go through the episode. It's like a round robin. It's a small circle, and it's Steph Muniz's turn once again. Steph, say hello to the listeners.
Hello, listeners. Glad to be back.
Oh, yeah. It's quite the episode this week.
Yes.
Quite the episode. Folks, you can find Steph on the Moving the Needle podcast, where you guys get into all kinds of pop culture-ish kind of conversations.
We do.
You guys tend to debate, more or less, or bring things to the table, and it's like, you know, who was this sexiest housemaid on TV? And so, like, you guys will go through, like, Mrs. Garrett and Mr. Belvedere, I guess. I don't know. There's not that many. There's not that many. There's not a lot of... Outside of Downton Abbey, there's not a lot of house help on TV.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, we haven't done a topic like that yet, but now that you've said it, it does sound kind of intriguing. So, you know, we might do that. But we've done things like guilty pleasure songs, and just recently, the latest episode that will be coming out is actually a pet film, where Sean brought his pet film, You Don't Mess with the Zohan. And we discussed that.
Pet film. I never thought of that. Like
it's kind of like the film version of a guilty pleasure song.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm not on that show right now to get so deep into it, but like, how is a pet film different than a favorite film?
I think a pet film is probably one that you're slightly embarrassed about liking.
Okay.
You have to justify to people, whereas a favorite film is just it can be just a really good film.
I got you.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of those then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we all do.
Yeah. It's like I want you guys to get. You might have even done it, like the film that you don't get why everybody else loves it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I've tried to cover that on Wicked Theory myself a couple times, because, you know, there's always those where it's, you know, like, I liked Napoleon Dynamite, but people were, like, obsessed and in love.
Yeah.
And at the time, I really didn't get it. I'm like, look, it's got some funny stuff, but, you know, I didn't get it. Yeah. Anyway, we're not here for that. We're here for another thing that we don't understand very much. It's called Preacher.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's because we've read the books, and that's where this show kind of comes from. We come from a place of, like, the books first. As we are wrapping up that show, we're wrapping up this show, and I'm reminded of the fact, I want to say thank you to you, Steph, and a couple other people, Palmer included, and obviously anyone who's been on the air, but there was a point where this kind of started as a de facto book club thing almost, where it was like we kept on talking about it so much on Wicked Theory, and then we were like, you know what, let's just do it as its own thing when it comes, and people can go get the books, and like we were so rallied up about it, and you know, that's the one thing I'll always have, is that like I got a bunch of people to kind of like buy into my bullshit for a minute. Like, I got them to jump on my train, and you know, hey, I'm sorry the destination wasn't exactly what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you are the reason why I own the books and why now we have 2 copies in the household. But
there you go. So when you guys downsize, you can definitely unload them as a full collection at a yard sale or something like that.
Yeah, we definitely could. I'm wondering because Palmer's buddy just moved down from Scranton, so I'm wondering, does he have a set, and if not, does he want a set?
Would you like some blasphemous material? So let's just get into it. All right. So this is the official business section. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play Music, wherever you get good podcasts. As is Stephanie's shows, Moving the Needle. And what's the status with the lights these days?
You know,
is it closed?
Talking about it, Henno and I.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know yet.
Gotham Lights.
We keep chatting about, you know, whether we're going to have whether we're going to continue the Overlights or not, with the fact, because kind of what threw a wrench in the plans was the fact that the Orville is now going to be on Hulu for the next upcoming season.
Right.
So before that happened, we're like, yeah, we'll be back with the Orville Lights. It'll be fun because it's the only thing we have going on with Gotham ending. And so 2 Gotham Lights ended. And now with it going to Hulu, we don't know. So Heno and I are still kind of discussing it, but right now it's not looking good. But we've also got Moving the Needle, so that's kind of where our focus is right now.
That's good. That's good. You guys are getting your podcast bug. You're getting your fill. Yeah, exactly. But all right, very good. You can also check out Steph on brain2keyboard.com. That's her blog.
From brain2keyboard.
From brain to keyboard. That's important. Yep. Grammatics are very important. And then you can find her on Twitter at BadWolfBay 87. I wasn't sure of the year or the number.
I know. You keep wanting to like flip flop it, make me like a lot older than I am.
Yeah. 78, 76. And you can find me at Wicked Theory. You can find this show at Preach vs. Preach. You can send us email. Time is running out. To pvp@wickedtheory.com. This is season 4. Kids, you know why we're here. We're going to get spoilers-ish. It's mostly a recap of the show. But, I guess coming out of this, we're definitely going to get into what we think is going to happen leading into the finale. But let's get this recap.
Yeah, because this is the penultimate episode, so it really is very nigh. People only have one more episode to send in emails to
It's very nigh, very very nigh. the nigh is in the air, and let's just get into it. I was about to sidetrack again a little bit. But let's just get into it. This episode, it's season 4, episode 9. Yeah, 9. We only do 10. Then again, never go with math. It's called Overture.
Yes.
So you'll hear this bell if something from the books pops up. We'll see how that goes. And this sound kind of just, opens the gates. All right, so we start on a real close-up of Jesse with just his eye socket, basically, breathing, just getting some fresh air.
Big gaping hole.
And he puts a nice eye patch on it. He looks stylish now. He's all ready to go. We cut to Tulip and Cass, who are right outside. This is all picking up from the end of last episode. They're all at that Holy Grail place. They're in that hotel roomish kind of spot. And Cassidy's kind of doing all the talking. He's like, I don't know. Should we tell him? Should we not? The fact that they hooked up. And he's like, you know what? But yeah, you're right. Mum's the word. Tulip's not really saying anything. But he's like, yeah, you know what? Mum's the word. And then as soon as Jesse comes out the door of the bathroom, Tulip just tells him. Hey,
we slept together. So, get mad at us if you want.
It is what it is. And you weren't around, so it happened. How do you feel about that? It just kind of throws it all at the newly reanimated Jesse.
But the best part of it is while she's telling him, you weren't here, so we don't have to feel bad about it. She says, go ahead and be mad, but then she says, turn us into toads. And that's the first thing Jesse focuses on. He's like, nah, thanks for telling me. Wait, toads?
Toads? I thought we were going to go somewhere there a little bit. But, he's like, thanks for telling me. So, like, it's like a what now situation. They kind of, it's a lot of that goes on in the episode where, like, they clear the air on things, and then the other person kind of just, like, dismisses it because we ain't got time, or if just forgives, and takes a lot of the drama out of doing those things to begin with in a way. Mm-hmm. It's like, you kind of build it up for like, oh, maybe there'll be a confrontation about that on this show. And it's like the show doesn't have time for that shit because we've got all these story fucking plates to spin. So like, these dramatic blow-ups that would happen in the book, like we don't ever get them really.
No.
Which is kind of weird on a show where, on any TV show where it's like, oh, more drama the better, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
I don't know.
There's a lot going on in this show, so I think for once they're like, less drama is probably good right now because we've got so much going on that we don't have the time or the ability to really focus on it. Plus, when you look at the time that Tulip and Cassidy spent together in the books, a lot of shit went down in those comics, and there was drug abuse, there was just it was a real bad situation, and here they just slept together again, which is and they've done twice now, so it's not as big of a deal. Yeah. So it can easily just move on. But Jesse does put his foot down. He said, you weren't here, so thanks for not being angry. He's like, yeah, but I'm here now, so back up.
He pulls a John Wick. He's like, I'm thinking I'm back, and so and he walks out of the room, and you kind of figure, oh, maybe Jesse's gonna try to rekindle or something. Like, it was a weird thing to try and read into, but they left it open. And so basically, it does come down to he goes outside, and once they're out there, well, no, my fault. While they're in the room still, it's like, well, what was the plan? Well, we were going to get Humperdoo, stop the Grail, the apocalypse, save the world, if you're into it. And so Tulip rehashes things kind of, this is what we were planning on doing before you showed up, so this is what we're going to do. She walks out first. Jesse and Cass have that exchange, then he walks out. But the great thing is the whole time that they're talking to Jesse, you can hear in the background there's fighting and there's yelling, and you're like, what is going on? And then they get outside, and it's the angel and demon still fighting each other. And still killing each other, and it's hilarious. They keep popping up, and you see the poor guy who's been the bartender this whole time, like dragging the corpses over to a large pile. And what's crazy is because like in the last couple episodes, I kept on meaning to make a note of it, like because you could hear it happening in the background whenever they were there, and it was always like, oh wait, something's going on in the background all the time. What the hell is that? And it was kind of like a funny reveal that how they decided to, like, let's just have it there and we don't discuss it. We never call attention to it. It'll interrupt their conversations once in a while, but we don't know what it is. This way, it's just a bigger reveal. It's like a 3-episode long joke, set up to a punchline.
And if you think about it, the poor guys had to deal with this for over 3 months. Because that's how long Cassidy and Tulip were gone with Humperdoo. We saw that 3-month gap that they were stuck in that cabin in the woods, or they're on that plain or wherever they plains desert area. So they've been killing each other for 3 months straight.
Yeah, you'd think there would be a lot more bodies, but we'll take it.
Well, he kept burning them. He kept burning them, and there was a desert, so it would just
that's true.
Get blown away, mixed with the sand.
That's true. He did, and Cassidy in one episode was like, "Yeah, I told you, I'll help you with the bodies."
Yep, exactly. So
then we go to Grail HQ. We get this kind of like montage. It's set to Requiem in D minor. You can, the operatic music's playing, and it's like this montage of Humperdoo kind of being prepped and pampered a little bit, like a day spa.
Yeah, pretty much.
Getting his hair and his nails done. There's
his unibrow plucked.
Right. Then he's moving through like just all of these Grail employees, like these throngs of people trying to reach out to him. And then finally they get him into the war room or the conference room. And he goes right for the cupcakes.
Yep.
There's a lot of pomp and circumstance happening, and he's just like, oh, cupcakes. So as soon as he grabs 2 of them and Jesus comes over for the hug, I was like, oh, okay, I see where this is going.
Yeah.
And then
it was clearly broadcast just from the way he turned around at the height at which he was holding both of those cupcakes.
Yeah. And Jesus comes in for the big hug and then spins around. Of course, he's got these 2 smoosh marks. And it's like very juvenile. When Jesus turns around, everybody's snickering and laughing at Jesus.
Yeah, they're all giggling.
Because he's got like little boobies. And then what's even funnier is that this lady comes up and she wants a picture. And Jesus just kind of figures, oh, okay. And she's like, no, I want you to hold the camera while you take my picture of me and Humperdoo.
No, I don't want a photo of the 2 of you, father and son. Right. I want to be in the photo with Humperdoo.
I mean, I'm not all about 2 messiahs. I'm not a 2 messiah type.
Exactly.
But then Jesus kind of shoots a glance over at Hitler, who gives him like a very knowing look, kind of like, see, this is what it's all saying. This is,
Yeah, you're never going to be treated as anything more than, the previous Messiah who died, who's just, he's okay. But now we've got this guy, Humperdinck, who's basically treated like the Beatles.
It's all about the new
by the
kids.
Grail employees.
Yep. It's all about the new sound, man.
Mm-hmm.
So then we kind of get into, we move backstage where he's getting ready still, and we see that God is now in the dressing room, but we come back to that a little bit later. We
get like a little bit of a rundown of some of the acts that are going to be in the extravaganza. Like we see them calling for mimes, and there's I don't know if we see the fire breather at that point, but there's one that shows up. But you could see like kind of different acts getting ready behind stage.
Sure, there's all these stagehands running around, all this prep going on. It's going to be a big Hadoo.
All these props.
And then we get a quick shot of Jesse. This is just before we go to credits. It's a quick thing of Jesse just kind of standing out in the open in the field, screaming for Santa Killers, really. He's using the word. He's trying to get him to come. And he doesn't come just yet. But then we smash through the opening credits. When we come back, we're back with the Holy Grail Inn / bar thing. That cutaway of Jesse doing that, like, I don't know when that falls in the timeline.
Yeah.
Because the location also does not look like their area. So it's like, I don't know. I was starting to think, that's like a thing they're kind of slowly reveal happened at another point, but it's not quite the situation. It's just confusing.
It was a little bit, because it didn't quite look like the scenery for Masada, but it also didn't quite look like Australia either.
I thought it was Louisiana for a second, and I'm like, what is this? Where is he?
It looked very similar to one of those roadways that they were on in like the outback of Australia.
Right. Okay, fair enough. I'll take your word for it. I think it's subjective.
Pretty much. It easily could have been, it could have easily been just, outside of the Holy Grail Inn. Like, who knows? But all that we're supposed to gather is that he's calling for reinforcements. He's calling for the Saint of Killers, because last time they chatted, it was, you help me kill God.
Right. So basically, we're back with all them tulips. Like, okay, well, I hope this isn't awkward, but this is the situation. This is actually when we kind of get that whole situation. We were kind of going in and out of order a little bit. But you were gone. Jesse gets it, but he's back now outside. All that stuff. The Variety Review, the Apocalypse 2020 logo.
Because we basically get we go back to that one police captain, I think he was.
Yeah.
He's flipping through channels. We see that morning show we've seen a couple times, and the one guy goes psycho and shoots the one host of the show, and he's yelling into the camera like, "Nobody believe me, the apocalypse is nigh."
Right.
And that's when the Grail cuts in with their little variety show, and it's on every channel. You can't switch it to a different channel. They're everywhere. It's broadcasting worldwide. And
Starr comes out and he makes his big introduction and speechy thing, and this is it. This is the end. There's going to be a clock. When it hits 0, Humperdinck will dance, and that's it. That's the apocalypse. And the feminists, and we see Tulip, and the degenerates, and we see Cassidy, and the desperados, and we see a shot of Jesse as they're all infiltrating the building.
The angel and the demon. They were their ride into Masada. They flew them over there, and then you basically see them each one by one get dropped into Masada by the angel and demon. And they kind of blitz back and forth between, like you said, Herr Starr saying all of those different categorizations, and I actually like that, how they cut it back and forth between him saying that, and then you get Tulip and Cassidy and Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool that they'll get what they deserve, and now our trio is in the building, and we finally get a little bit of a fleeting reference in comparison to how much backstory it actually is, but the angel and the demon are like, hey, take care of our son, our baby. It's inside of you. So that's like, now that's like, we were wondering on this show in previous episodes, like, are they going to make reference to that? Are they going to call it out for what it is? And since there's no time to delve deep, it's just a nod. It's just like, hey, well, that's our kid, but you have fun.
Yeah, it was nice. It was at least, it was great that they finally referenced it. And, he's got his hand on Jesse's shoulder, my son, and then she's got her hand like kind of on his stomach, chest area.
Right, like as if he's like 2 months, like he's 2 months pregnant or something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, to take care of our child. Be safe.
I kind of wonder now if, like, because I'm just realizing now, like, oh, we don't see them again. They disappear. I kind of, when they were all going now, I was like, oh, okay, we got like a little team now. With a couple of badasses with an angel and a demon. Maybe we're really. They're like, no, we're just dropping you off. This is your fight, I guess. And they fuck off. They go do whatever. And kind of wondering.
They could probably screw and fight again. Yeah,
that's true. They got interrupted.
Screw and fight.
So I was thinking, I wonder if they'll pop up in some way, but I guess we'll see. But we give them the bell for kind of closing that little loophole of continuity. So basically, the next scene is that Jesus is in this dressing room, and Jesus comes to the dressing room of Humperdew, and God's been in there kind of, just kibitzing really with Dew, who's not really like, listening and paying attention.
Talking about Cain and Abel.
And how childish they were. But Jesus comes by. He wants to wish good luck tonight. It's a big night for his dad, and he's got roses.
Yeah.
So, Dad's giving him nothing. So, like, Dad doesn't open the door, so Jesus has to put the roses through the slot. And
stem first, and God just pulls them through, and I think all but 2 roses just immediately get just sliced off the bouquet and fall to the ground. And a couple are hanging there. He just kind of like pokes them through with his finger.
Yeah, it's deliciously awkward. But he's like, oh, well, don't go. Check this out. And then they do the hip hop breakdance thing again. With it's tricky, and God's not impressed. God's just not feeling it, and then that's it. As we go back inside the room, the hairdresser catches a snag, a knot in Humperdew's hair, and he squeals, and God smites her across the room, basically into the wall.
Through the wall. She went through the wall with the entire upper half of her body, and her legs are hanging out. This upsets Humperdew. He starts kind of whining a little bit because he's scared. And God just goes, oh, I know, it's scary. And he just takes our clothing rack and wheels it in front of the woman's lower half is just sticking out of the wall, so he doesn't have to look at it.
And then, our heroes, our trio, they fight their way through some Grail guys. We got a cool little scene with some split screen stuff. We get
probably the most comic book like scene that we're probably going to get in this entire series. Yeah, you got panels, you got the fight and blood and everything. Yeah.
We get the hero shot that's actually in the opening credits for the season with the 3 of them standing there.
Yep.
They've come to this open area. Really couldn't make out what it's supposed to be there, but the show that's the live Apocalypse 2020 is happening somewhere above them, somewhere a few floors up. They can kind of hear it.
It looks like it was the city center because you saw all the different levels of Masada, so that it kind of looked like that was a central area where all the pathways and roadways kind of converged, kind of like a little town square inside the building.
You're right. It felt like a hub of some kind. Sure. Yeah. So they turn around and Cassidy, his job just disappeared. They just turn their back and in 2 seconds he's gone.
Yeah, well, because it happened before. While they were busy fighting those Grail guards that were still there, they turn around and he's gone, and then he pops his head around the corner and goes, I'm over here, and he was standing in that kind of open area, and then it happens again. Only, of course, we see that while they're busy looking for him, he's been snagged by God.
That guy. He's such a scamp. We cut away from all the action over there, and we get a close up on a guitar. And,
Yep.
and it's our friend Arseface, and he's singing "Closing Time,"
Yes.
and like very well too. There was like a little because I rewound it a couple times, and
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh, okay, I actually could sit through this cover, like if I found this on YouTube, "Closing Time" cover by Eugene.
By Arseface.
You
Yeah.
know, they should
And-
put that out.
Yeah. They should just put a little album in. And of course, seeing that, I got really, really excited. I was like, oh, we're gonna have Arseface the Rockstar. We're gonna have this. Yes, they're getting to it. And then you don't really get too much there. And,
Yeah, we'll get to it.
And yeah, we'll get to it. But he does have the priest comes there. The priest that's there in the prison has a chat with him. He has to speak with him, and then we get the reveal that he's being released. They for some reason thought he ate Jesse,
right? And then
since they couldn't find him in his poop, they are gonna release him. So
but these things take time. So for him to have been in there for 3 months, I guess that feels right.
Sure, and
So
okay, we can deal with that.
So now Arseface is, Eugene's just it's always comes back to what's God's plan, and the father's like, I don't know, like you were like, are you content with being whatever you've been? Like you've been comic relief, a cautionary tale, appetite suppressant. And he's like, and Arseface is like, or I could be a rock star, and that gets no reaction from the priest.
No, the priest keeps talking and saying, that he himself isn't sure what's
There
going
is
on with
a
the world.
plan.
He's not sure with God's plan. It's like, and maybe he just doesn't even care about you anymore. And Eugene just goes, I'll be a rock star.
Yeah, like totally not
That's
listening
the
to
only
it.
thing he focused on in
like-
the entire conversation. He just was like, yep, I'll be a rock star.
Rock star. So with that, we go back to the Grail HQ, and Tulip and Jesse are looking for Cassidy, and God's got him, and God and Cass now have a little bit of a conversation where God's going to try and manipulate him. All your desires. The greatest piles of Peruvian flake, the love of your life, Tulip, Ireland, these things that you want, and then, taps him basically, and then sends him what seems to be Ireland, back in time, and he gets to relive this moment of, oh, what if he had been able to come home, and Billy hadn't died, and like he gets to feel that for a second of all this goodness that he had wanted, that never happened. And God baits him with it, and he's like, you could have this. You could have like a second chance for just one little thing, which is the cliffhanger for the commercial break. Which is not in the comics. It's a different conversation, but everybody kind of gets their turns having these confrontations with God in the books, and to similar ends where it's him trying to convince them, to throw the plan away or to give up or kill Jesse or do these kinds of things. Because, as we come to learn here, they've held true to it. Like God only has limited power when it comes to Genesis. So this is why he needs others in a way, or he's trying to get others to do it for him.
Yep. And he does a good job about splitting them up. He starts with Cassidy, gets him on his own, starts chatting to him about, everything that could be if he just decided to help God, stop Jesse or protect Humperdoo, just to make sure that the apocalypse continues on as planned, and that continues. They're having that in-depth conversation, which, like you said, didn't happen in the book, but it was a really good scene. Like we had some really great acting out of God and Joseph Gilligan, and it was a really great scene. Like you feel good to have him have that type of scene, because he doesn't really get a lot of scenes where he just gets to be him, where he can kind of a little bit meatier of a role.
Yeah, nobody. There's not a lot of again, I guess it comes down to these dramas that they just don't ever have time to really have anybody sit down and break down, the 10 episodes of this on something like Netflix, where it's like, well, we got a little bit more time to fill. We probably would have gotten scenes kind of like that,
Yeah, and then the thing with Cassidy, that in the book, you start out really liking Cassidy, and then, like we mentioned before, the whole stuff with Tulip, where there's the drugs, and we find out that Cassidy's just a really terrible, terrible person, and you kind of end up hating him in the comic, and you're cheering for Jesse and Tulip. Whereas here with the show version of Cassidy, it's so difficult to just dislike Joseph Gilligan. He's great as an actor, and so his interpretation of Cassidy has been really great, and they really kind of cut back a lot of that stuff. It's like, yes, he does heavily use drugs, and he's not necessarily a great person, but then you still feel bad about him being in love with Tulip, and you feel bad for him, whereas you would have never felt bad for him in the comics because you weren't supposed to.
Right.
And so here, I do kind of like that we can like Cassidy as a character in the show and kind of sympathize with him. And so that's something interesting.
And it's a thing, I think, on TV they were probably nervous to do it anyway, where it's like, it's a rare thing when they build up anybody on a show and then like halfway through reveal, well, he seemed like he was a guy who was on a redemption arc who used to be a douche, but his dark sides get the better of him again, and it destroys friendships. Like, that's not a typical kind of story arc on a TV show. Like, once you start going up, you don't ever really kind of crash back down. You might a little bit, but then you come back up, which is kind of what they're doing with him here in the long term. But, as I was flipping through the books before the show, I kind of came across the scene where, like, him and Jesse finally have the confrontation in the street, and Jesse just continues to punch the shit out of him, and he's just a bloody fucking mess by the time, and Jesse just doesn't stop, and it goes on for this long thing where, Jesse's just giving him the business and just speechifying over and over and over, giving him a lot of crap, and I was just like, wow. Yeah, this is not that show. This is not that show.
Despite the crazy things the show has done, it's just the dynamic they've set up for these three characters is that they have a bond, and they have this friendship that is kind of exceeding that of all the bad shit that has happened to them and with each other.
Right.
It's never going to get to that point where they're completely just at odds.
Yeah, there's no breakdown like in it planned. You can kind of see that there's no, even with Cassidy getting manipulated as this episode goes on, you kind of just know that that'll turn by the end. Like this is supposed to be some kind of, I think, like piece of that a little bit where like, oh, he did do kind of like a fucked up thing, but we'll get to it. So. Do this one little thing. We go back to Jesse and Tulip. They get stuck in the elevator. Basically, he's like, well, I didn't think to use the word on him the whole time. Her basic thing is like, I read the letter. They get these two story points out really quickly, and it's like, okay, let's try and climb out. That's the gist of that whole scene. We go back to the show, Apocalypse 2020. And it's backstage. It's Featherstone or Flufferman and Starr, and it's basically like, hey, this is it. This is the big moment. This is what we've been waiting for, working for. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, this is it. And like this kind of flirtation thing happens, and he finally sees some potential in her, where it's like, oh, hey, I never really kind of thought of you. It's all kind of said in facial expressions and exchanges. And then, do you believe in magic starts to play. Yep.
And he creepily fondles her breasts through her suit. He's like, oh, you're a handsome woman, and I'm now a very handsome man.
And, the groping was so awkward and stiff. Not that groping ever is not awkward, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we cut to Cassidy and God. Cassidy's not into this plan. God's trying to put on him. God's like, well, he's like, God, you've had some bad ideas, but this is the worst. And God's like, come on, you're trying to save. You want to help people. You're defending people. These people who, like, for the last 100 years tortured you. And so basically, God's just playing him leading into his weaknesses, manipulating him. And, telling him, you're the little boy inside you just wants to go home, and playing him like the violin,
Oh, yeah.
We cut back again. We come back to the show. Now the Maori warriors are doing a chant dance.
Yes, they're doing the haka.
Well, okay. All right. That's good.
That is the traditional dance of New Zealand and of the Maori. So that it's first came to light as part of the I think they're called the All Blacks, is the New Zealand rugby team.
Okay.
And so they would perform the haka before their matches to kind of intimidate the other team.
Sure.
And then it's kind of been then borrowed by other teams, and a lot of the different New Zealand sports teams will have now use it and do that. So that's, yeah. I was actually telling Palmer, I'm like, you can't have an apocalypse show without the haka.
I guess not. All right. Well, I learned something just now. But we come back to the blissful after moments for Starr and Featherman.
Flufferman.
And they're in bed, and Star's got no shirt on. She's got the blanket up to her neck, which just felt like, okay, what's that about? Where's this?
Yeah.
What's the reveal going to be on that? And we get 3 reveals in this scene.
We do.
We get the first one is that she's still wearing a suit.
She's fully clothed.
Fully clothed. The second reveal is that the storyline is that this is a limited apocalypse. It's not going to be everybody. That was the original plan. Now we've kind of boiled it down. It's not as deadly. And then for him, because she calls him out on it. Like, I thought this was about dying and ascending to heaven and all this stuff. Like, what's this all been all about then? And he tells her it's been about violence, power, and dirty sex. And that's when we get reveal number 3. That she's wearing a strap-on fist dildo, and it's wet.
It was definitely used, and since the only one that wasn't wearing clothes was Starr, she was clearly fisting him.
As you
so
do.
He was the only one that got any pleasure out of that whole scenario. She, sadly didn't even get undressed. She didn't get anything. So,
and
definitely a one-sided affair with that thing. Now, in the comics, she is completely obsessed with Starr, and there is a kind of like a little romantic connection thing. I guess, is this like a partial bell that she finally gets to be with him? But
because she does finally get him in the comics too, right? I mean, at some point, no.
It kind of, because isn't there a scene where there's like she's got some kind of like dominatrix thing going on?
There was a whole dominatrix thing storyline to its own elsewhere in the series earlier on, but I don't know. Oh my God! I just flipping through the books and seeing how ridiculous they treat him in the books, where like he's got black rings on his eyes because of so silly. Maybe I guess there were some silly, campy stuff in the book I forgot about. All right, but yeah, all right. I'll give him a partial because that follows the storyline, at least in general, of her being obsessed with him in the books, and it's
although very quickly goes to not being obsessed with him anymore because he tells her, like you said, what it's all been about in the whole grand scheme of things, or at least his plan. And then he looks at her, and we get the reveal of the fisted dildo, and he goes, "Look at you."
You'd never
you really
get
think
to heaven.
You're getting into heaven?
Right.
No.
And, yeah.
No. And he runs off to go fax a memo, and she's just left there completely dejected and just feeling horrible.
Which does raise the question, like, he thinks he will? Okay. All right.
I'm sure he knows he won't. That's why he wants to stay alive.
Yeah, that's true. I guess he
That's
just
why
figures
it's a limited apocalypse.
it's selective. So we cut back to Tulip, who crawls out of the elevator shaft. God's there, and he's like, come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. It's a quick scene. We cut to a scene with Jesus and Hitler, and Hitler is trying to talk him into doing something, and he's like, I'm not a murderer. And Hitler's like, well, no, but I am.
Yeah,
And
basically they're saying there's no way he's going to convince God that he's a better Messiah than Humperdoo, so the only way to get him the job is to kill Humperdoo.
Right.
Which is kind of the same thing that Jesse and them are like, we got to kill Humperdoo. That's all that we can do. And Jesus is not having it. He's like, nope, I'm not a murderer. I don't want you to kill him for me. And he's getting him drunk at the same time.
And then Jesse's still in the elevator. A quick shot of him. Mm-hmm. We can then cut to God, who opens an office, kills the Grail soldier, kind of just manning this desk, hiding from the apocalypse, basically.
Yeah, he's basically sitting there. He's like crying, like he's crying in the dark, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I know I should be out there with the celebration, but I don't want to die." And then he dies because God just again throws him into a wall.
Which is like God's go-to move, is just to swat, a mighty swat of everybody.
And this time it's not, like a spear straight into it. He basically is kind of like almost halfway plastered onto the wall, like some kind of like weird,
like you would get a fly in a fly trap, or fly swatter,
Exactly.
But basically,
and
God.
Now it's Tulip's turn to chat with God.
Yep. So they have this little kind of tete-a-tete back and forth. He's kind of antagonizing her a little bit, and he wants a fight, and we're going to get to that in a second. We cut to Jesse, still trapped in the elevator. And so now he starts using the word because that they'll bring the Saint of Killers again, trying to get the Saint of Killers to come. We cut back to God and Tulip.
Although this time, instead of saying come or show up, he's saying help. He's yelling help while using the word because he needs help and he's not sure what's happened with Tulip because why is she taking so long? And like you said, get back to the conversation with God and Tulip where this whole time she's been real cool, just kind of like, I'm not taking any of your shit, God. I know your deal. You're a jerk. What's going on here? And he basically just says, all right, you think that you can not get upset? Then he basically offers her a little bit of a challenge. He has a timer. He's going to set it for 60 seconds. If she doesn't lose her temper with him, with God, he'll leave them alone. He'll call off the apocalypse. Everything will be done. And she goes, okay, that's easy. 60 seconds, not being mad at you. I could do that. And she's like, what's the catch? And God goes, no catch, but it's going to be just the same thing that it always is. You, Tulip, are going to screw it up. Yeah.
And so he starts out simple, calls him a murderer, a whore, all simple words, cheat, this kind of thing. It's not really doing it.
And then, she brushes it all off.
And then he brings up the baby. He brings up what we all kind of forgot about because they don't talk about it much, is Dallas. And he starts telling her, do you want to know why your baby died? Like in the cosmic scheme of everything, why you had to suffer through that and all. He's like, oh, I forgot. And that's like,
he's like, I can't remember.
It doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter like to him. And that's what triggers her. She tries to shoot him in the face. It doesn't work.
Several times. And then it was basically like 10 seconds to go. She snaps, and then as soon as she shoots, we hear the ding or the timer go off, and she looks at it, and she's like, oh, shit, I screwed it up. And then God goes, I win, and he knocks her the heck out.
Yep, swats her away. He empties a trash pail and then starts cutting. And we figure it's her he's cutting up, but we cut away.
He's cutting something. You see blood splatter, and there's something going on. Although when I was looking at it, I knew it wasn't her immediately because he kind of went up. So I was like, oh, he's cutting at that dude in the wall. Because he wouldn't want to necessarily kill Tulip just yet, because
Right.
he would just want her to be kind of out of the way, because he's working his way through. He started with the weakest link in the chain, Cassidy.
Yeah.
Then he moved on to Tulip and her temper. And now it's just Jesse left. He's going to work his way through everyone. And, yeah, but then we will find out what that bucket full of blood is for.
So Jesse's in the elevator when the power comes back. Doors open. He starts walking around. He hears Cassidy. Then he finds Cassidy. Cassidy's eviscerated, literally.
He's just a chest with some intestines hanging out. He's just blood everywhere. There's pieces of him everywhere. He's just, coughing up. Whoops, hit my microphone. He's just coughing up blood, and he's pleading with Jesse. He's saying like, God tried to convince me, but I kept saying no. I wouldn't do what he wanted, and he did this to me, and you just you feel really bad for Cassidy.
Cassidy,
and at the same time, you're so happy. It's like, yes, he resisted. Good job.
But you can feel it coming because he's the way he's phrasing it, and then Jesse starts to call him on a little bit, and he's like, "But you said you refused him, right?" He's like, "I did. I kept on saying no until I said yes."
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's when God enters and then knocks Jesse out with a leg.
Yeah,
with a leg.
Cassidy's leg.
Like a leg of Cass.
One of Cassidy's legs. Yeah.
And then gives he brings the blood. There's a bucket of blood and starts pouring it into Cassidy's mouth. And that's kind of like how that scene ends. And then we jumped. Well, he tells him good work. This was like the little plan. We come back. We cut to Arseface again. And now he's out. He's out of prison. And then he's like got his little guitar. He's on a corner. He pulls it out, He kind of envisions
singing.
Well, he envisions that rocket star life,
like on a stage,
doing coke, like all this crazy,
pretty
like
women,
quick montage, And then as soon as he starts with closing time, the fucking taxi runs him over.
I was so pissed off. I was sitting there going, seriously? What the hell? Come on.
Like, we gotta, why do we have to slow his story down? Like, you didn't even have to show anything happen to him. He could have just been standing there doing it. We could have cut away, but now he's got to be injured. And
or dead. Like, he was underneath the cab. Like, the cab full on ran him over. You just saw his legs sticking out from underneath.
His foot twitches a little bit.
Exactly.
So like, okay, he's probably alive. But I'm just thinking, okay, look, so that's all we get for him for the rest of the episode.
So do we give that like a kind of a dejected bell? Like
I'll give it a thunk. I'll give it a...
Yeah.
I can do a muted...
So close. Because it was actually something that Palmer said.
Oh, no, that's not it.
There
you go. Good.
But that was something that Palmer was saying before when we first saw him with just the priest kind of strumming on the guitar and singing. It's like, oh, maybe he'll be like the button on the season finale where we see him just like as Arseface the rock star like we saw in the comic, kind of as like some kind of punk rocker dude. And it makes sense that it wouldn't be the punk anymore because that was kind of the 90s. As far as the comics were concerned, that he would fit more into that genre, but he could just be a regular, just a rock star.
There was a part of me that was like, are they going to find a way to get him onto this TV special that's on right now? Like, I was thinking that for a second. I was like, because maybe that's how he gets like the mass exposure, but I guess not. So what do you think if we try to figure out where that goes? Because now he's been hit by a taxi, so he's going to be all fucked up. And like
more so than he already is.
Yeah, and we only have one episode left. So...
Honestly, I think that's it. I think that's kind of like their way of wrapping that up with Eugene. Is like they gave us that hope of a possible Eugene Arseface the rock star, and then they just kind of went, nope, we've got to deal with other things, so we're just gonna hit him with a taxi and move on.
He might though. I guess if we want to do this right, like he's gonna end up in the hospital. Someone could discover him in the hospital. I guess if he's playing his guitar, or he might discover that girl that he falls in love with in the book.
Maybe she's a nurse in the hospital.
You know, a nice one-eyed nurse. Yeah. So I guess there is still a little more potential there with him. I can't imagine how he would tie back to the group. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're just kind of following him tangentially, just so that the audience knows here's this lovable character. You just get to see his trajectory, so you know nothing bad happened to him.
Yeah, this would kind of help with I guess accomplishing. Wow, I can't talk. This would help with making it possible for him to look a little bit more like he did in the comics towards the end, where he really barely had any hair.
Right.
He had like I said before in the comics, he had a punk outfit going on, and so he had all these black and chains and things. So I guess we could see something like that in the hospital. So that they maybe give us.
Could you imagine if they made him uglier? Like they made him like now he looks like he does in the books.
In the comics, yeah.
Like his face is more smushed.
That would be certainly be interesting. But that also means that we won't quite get the same part of the story with Jesse's mom, because that was the whole link to that. So will they still give us that in the finale in some kind of other way? Or I think it's more or less like a lost cause at this point.
Yeah. So let's jump back into it a little bit as we wrap it up. Jesse and God are now in a church. Mm-hmm. Basically, God finally says that he wants Genesis, that why haven't you ever tried to use it on me? Use it. Go ahead. Give it a shot. See how it works. And basically, Jesse just can't himself do it. Like he can't bring himself to do it.
He can't bring himself to it. Which I also thought was cool as well, because it kind of was Jesse also trying to resist God, because God was trying to goad him into it.
Yeah.
And he saw what happened with Cassidy, that Cassidy couldn't resist. And he's not sure what happened with Tulip, but he's like, no, you know what? I'm not going to let him force me into doing it.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps, because and he's like, fine, I'm not going to use it on you, but then just go ahead and take it already. And God just goes, give it to me.
Yeah.
And suddenly it clicks in Jesse's head. It's like, oh, you can't just take it from me, can you?
Right.
I have to give it to you.
Yeah. He's got to give it to him, because here's the thing too, that made me realize where, Jesse was dead for 3 months and it just stayed with him. Like, if you think about it, like, there's a thing they're not really going to address, but it is like a little bit of a loophole of, I guess the Genesis just hibernated there. Like maybe it kind of knew that Jesse would be back, or didn't want to leave just yet. I guess if you have to come up with a reason, I think conveniently for them, they're just hoping people don't put that together a little bit.
Yeah.
But he was dead for 3 months and it was just sitting there. I think that would have been the time to take it. I think that's, conceivably if God, if he couldn't get it then, even, it backs up the idea that God can't get it on his own.
Yeah.
But basically God says to him, well, you can't do it because you fear me, as you should. And then we cut to Tulip, who's very much not dead. They didn't drain her. They drained the dude in the wall. But she's locked in the office now, magically it seems, by God's will, because she tries to pick the lock and try as
3 times.
Yeah, try as she may with all her different tools. No good. We cut to Jesus and Hitler now, who, Hitler is like, fuck it, I'll do it. Cocks his gun and was about to leave the room. Jesus stops him, and it's like, I can't let you go. And then they kind of start this little childish shoving match thing.
Yeah.
This little, because neither one of them, I think the idea is that neither one of them is a real fighter. Like Christ is not a fighter, and Hitler is like a big bitch, so he's not a fighter. And so they kind of start scrapping, and we cut away.
Although Jesus does shove him pretty hard into like a cabinet or something that's in the background, and then and Hitler just like yells and charges him.
Don't get me wrong. For what we've seen, points to Jesus. Yeah. Points
exactly.
Points for him.
You shoved him into a wall. Yeah.
It was a firm shove. We cut to Herr Starr, who has his fight with the fax machine and, and the customer service guy on the other end.
Yeah, telling him, like, have you tried turning it on and off again?
Right. Function, start, send.
Function, start, send.
Right.
And he just keeps pushing it and pushing it. It's not happening. And he's got this note that needs to be faxed that says, urgent, limited, he's got the whole plans of how it's not supposed to be a full apocalypse. And he has to get these out and he tells the service, the IT guy, basically, he says, look, if I don't get this to get faxed through, you and your entire IT service department, your entire family, the whole world is going to die. And the guy just keeps telling him what to push function, start, send.
Right. I realize now that we kind of jumped over that during the Featherstone and Starr conversation, part of that reveal was her clarifying for him that Hoover 2 was supposed to get that memo out, that it was a limited. And that no one got that because she killed Hoover 2. So that's what he was scrambling out of the room to go do.
Yes.
Which is kind of going to be the way that, now is Starr going to have to halt it? Or, like, you know what I mean? It's finding this other way for breaks to be put on the plan from inside. And so we kind of cut away from that. We cut to Tulip, who's shooting at the door. It finally opens. Featherstone is on the other side of it here, like the golden savior. We cut from that to Cassidy with Humperdew. Now Cassidy's fully back to normal, and he's just babysitting Humperdew pretty much, just keeping an eye on him as Mr. Dew rehearses for his big night. He's doing his
little tap dance.
His little ball and chain or shuffle, whatever that is. And then we go to God and Jesse, back to them. And God says it's time to release Genesis. And this is when Jesse's like, well, then you're going to have to take it. He realizes that he can't. And finally, Santa Killer arrives. And God's like, well, me and him go way back. And turns out he's not here for me, Jesse. He's here for you. And we kind of have gotten this little...
It's a flashback scene, because basically it goes back to, I think, when they're burying Jesse, and you see the Santa Killers is just standing there on a cliff overlooking everything, and God shows up, and he does try to shoot him. He lifts his gun, and God, again, shows him the little doll that belonged to his daughter, and we get that scene again with his wife and daughter, where it all started in season 1. And it kind of, we get the understanding that God got to him as well. Like, he promised him his family if he's gonna help him with Jesse, and that's when he says, he's not here for me, he's here for you. God walks out, Santa Killers walks towards Jesse, and it cuts out there.
And that's where the episode ends. Which is starting to line up with the comics a little bit, and the fact that, like, there's this confrontation now with all of them. It is kind of like a reversal of how it goes down in the book a little bit. They do that for some drama. The question is that, like, does Santa Killers really care enough, or is he so burnt by it all that he'll do a double cross and shoot God anyway? Because it's like, well, any deal from you is not to be trusted really anyway. So the only thing I know for sure that feels right might be just getting his vengeance by shooting God, because, God is the one who really did it all. He's the one who really pulled off all that stuff to fuck up Santa Killer's life. And it is a question, will they kind of follow through on that in the end? I think so. I think that's still there. Much like in the comics, it's like this loophole that it gets exploited where, oh, God never considered whether or not I should make the guns so that they can't kill me.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Oversight. And I think that's the thing. It would be nice, I think, if someone every once in a while, or once maybe, even God had said like something to the effect of like, yes, I'm like omnipotent, but I've put in place things that, like keep me from being that were like back in the days. I figured it was good to keep me from being too powerful or being able to manipulate you guys too much.
Yep.
Like, the gods should automatically be immune to the bullets from Santa Killer's gun and should be able to pull Genesis right out. But it's like unstated that, there are some things that even I can't do. Why is that? He should. It would be nice if he had said something along those lines at some point, like, well, it was a fail safe I put back in here back in the days when I was nicer, or or something like that, or these kinds of things. So now I'm almost wondering, considering where we've been, how and we got to here, it almost feels like I don't know how we're going to do a whole hour next week. Like it feels like we're like right up against it, and like could the last 20 minutes of the show just be tying up the loose ends? That kind of a thing where it's like, the whole Grail God thing is kind of settled in the first by the third act, and then we kind of Jesse and Tulip and closing the doors, and Cassidy closing the doors with his storyline. Arseface the same thing, because it doesn't feel like there's a lot left to have done. It almost feels like you could probably split the finale between that stuff, where it's like wrap it up, have the crazy shit happen, with the Grail. I kind of want Starr to get it all taken away.
Yeah.
I don't want him to just die. I feel like he's a character who should have that handsomeness taken away, at least for if he's only alive for a couple of minutes after that's done. Or if we see him go to hell because he dies or something. When he's in hell, he's back to his damaged self.
Yep.
I think that's something I'd like to see. And, I don't know who could run hell, but I'd like to see Hitler get some comeuppance of some kind. If Santa Killers is on the throne in heaven, who's on the throne in hell? I bet you Jesus could run it pretty good. If anybody's going to have the patience and the heart to care about those people, it's going to be Jesus. You got nothing for me?
It's something. It's something.
It's something. Any predictions or thoughts from you?
Oh, I don't know, because like you said, that there's still a lot that they're going to have to pack into that last episode, and I caught some of the previews for next week, and it's gonna be at least if we're thinking that it's going to be kind of split between stuff is going to happen and then tying up loose ends, that first half is going to be action packed. Like there's a lot of stuff happening. There was a scene where you have Tulip confronting Cassidy about Humperdew, and they kind of get into a little bit of a fight. So that's going to be interesting to see. It's just, it almost seems like everything that I kind of had hoped for is not going to happen, or at least not in the way that I would have liked to have seen it, like right. with Jesse's mom and with Arseface. So it just, I guess the only thing that I could hope for now is to see, I guess, some closure between the three of them as far as like Jesse, Cassidy, and Tulip. Maybe the friendship survives after all of this, because like I said, the way they've kind of set up the dynamic for the three of them, it would be kind of nice for them to still be friends after this. But
yeah,
I don't know.
That's a good point, because they're closer on the show than they are in the book at the end.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
At the end, Cassidy ends up doing his own deal, and gets to be human again, but he's off by himself.
Yep.
And Jesse and Tulip kind of ride off.
Yeah, which could also that could happen too. Like I would be fine if, as long as things are cool between the three of them, like Cassidy could go off and do his own thing. Jesse and Tulip can finally be together without any issues or interruptions, and we can get that together forever. That would be great to see. I guess it's just so with how they've set things up. It's so hard to even predict what's going to happen. Like they really could go in any direction here, and it's just kind of a case where we're just gonna have to really just wait and see.
Yeah, and I forgot too because I was flipping through the books that there was a sequence where it's like after everything, and like Jesse's back and he's fine. He's got his eye back, and like everybody's kind of. It's almost like a 2 months later type of thing, you know. So, which is, you know, something the show does all the time. But I would like to see them on the horse. You know, when she's in traffic in the book and he just rides up on the horse, and she's like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like, huh? But outside of that, like specific moments, like you said, I have no direct hopes anymore. I've gotten to see Arseface on a musical trajectory.
Yeah.
That was whatever aspect of that is. That's kind of what I wanted to see. So I'm as far as just getting to see, you know, pieces of storylines, I'm cool with that. I got a taste of it. Sex Detectives popped up for 25 seconds. At least they popped up. And you know, yeah, like the show is wrapping up with some kind of this amalgamation of you know, the two big endings that kind of happen. You know, there's the giant ending that happens in the desert, Mossad with the Santa Killers and the tanks and all that, and then there's the ending, which is later on. So they kind of have blended some of these kinds of things together. So I'm cool with it. You know, because there is a point in the books where like the apocalypse is kind of like not going to happen now, and it's just that storyline's put to bed. You know what I mean? And then, you know, like if the show were running in that timeline, there would still be like 3 more seasons to go.
Exactly.
After the apocalypse thing is taken off the table. All right, so I guess that's it, really.
Yeah, because I mean, for me though, I think I'm still not ready to give up hope that Jesse's mom might still show up.
It would be
they
interesting.
Might just throw her in there, like, you know, maybe she's been just like held captive in Masada for this whole time, and like they stop the apocalypse, and all of a sudden they just come across. Like I don't know, or maybe it's like one last ditch effort from God to be like, hey, wait, don't do anything. Look who I have here. Surprise.
Would you be satisfied if at the end, like, it's like Tulip and Jesse, and they're like walking up the highway, they're all fucked up, and then a truck pulls up, and it's a woman with one arm, and Jesse gives her the double take, like, "Mama."
Yeah, that, or like they're going down the highway, and there's this, you know, like a rest stop with a bar or a restaurant or something.
Yeah,
they walk in, and that's how they, you know, meet her. Like either way,
that would be interesting.
I want a woman with one arm that Jesse recognizes as his mom. Just give me that, please.
Or even if like they don't even spell it out that much, like for the book readers, like we'd get it, like, you know what I mean. But it feels like a seed planted for season 5 if they ever did it, kind of a thing. Like, you know, like who is that lady? Why is she important? Like, you know, why does Jesse do a double take? And then
I think that would actually be a really interesting way to do it. Is, yeah, like you said, have her drive up in a truck. They open the door, and it's a woman there with one arm driving the truck. Like, and then they could cut it off there, because we were like, oh, Jesse's mom.
Jesse's mom. You know, I wouldn't be averse to them ending it in a diner with a diner scene, and maybe they've been telling the story to each other or regaling it or something. This is like at some later future date. As long as they don't age up everybody too much.
Yeah.
I don't want to see like old versions of Jesse and Tulip, like with makeup. But yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, I don't know. That's it. I don't know what exactly we're going to do for the finale episode. I was thinking about having a few people on at once, but then again, I don't want it to get too kind of crazy. You know what I mean? But it ain't going to hurt. If people want to hear... I don't know, somebody in particular, I don't know, tweet, fucking let me know. I don't know, show some love. The Wicked Theory podcast returns in October. The date to be announced, but it is coming back. It's going to be, I'd like to say all new, all different, but it's definitely going to be different. I can't really call it all new if I'm still there, but it's my show. But it will be coming back in October. Now that this is out of the way and some other obligations have closed, I can now focus on putting that together and getting that up and going. If people want to hear me on something else besides this, check out the first episode of The Palmer Files. That's you've heard Agent Palmer here on this show. He's got his own podcast. It's interview style. Him and I discuss a book. I know that sounds amazing. But no, well, we did have a lot of fun. It's a really good podcast. I wish him a lot of luck. People check it out. Subscribe to it. The Palmer Files. And, of course, you can check out Steph on Moving the Needle.
Mm-hmm.
And at FromBrainToKeyboard.com. Steph, thank you for joining us. Or me, I should say, because there's only one other person here. But you know how these things go, right? Everyone uses the royal we and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's it.
Yeah.
I was trying to vamp, but the music is here. So we're just going to wrap it up.
Might as well.
Might as well.
I was happy to be back again, so thanks for having me back. It's been fun as always.
It was great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, so much for doing it. In case we don't have you here next week, seriously, really appreciate you coming out, helping me out, and getting me through these dark times.
Well, you're very welcome.
All right, folks, this is it. That's it. Until the end of the world, or until next week, because that will be the end of the show. I don't know how to finish that phrase. Until the end of the world, we'll be here. Or until next week. Thanks for listening.